Prizio. I represent a nonprofit, a civil rights organization called One Standard of Justice. And I'm here to tell you it's easier to get placed, our children, to get placed on the registry than it is for them to get molested by someone on it. A public registry is a failed policy. It gives some urban communities a false sense of security. But when 97% of the next sexual assault will happen by people we don't know, what are we spending all this money for? Every time we put a person on the registry, we're capturing the entire family who lives at that address. If you were a private landlord, or do you want your house on the registry? Apparently the state and federal government doesn't either. Housing, employment, education. This group is discriminated. They're discriminated by people within the prisons. This is the lowest echelon going. The registry started with a mother called Patty Wetterling. Does anybody recognize her name? She's from Minnesota, and in 1988 or 89, her child Jacob was kidnapped at gunpoint with, there were 3 children, he was the only one taken. And so the birth of a registry started, but it was law enforcement only, and it was for the most heinous crimes. So it turns out 26, 28 years later, somebody cut a deal in prison, and he was responsible for the kidnapping, molestation, and murder of Jacob Wetterling. And it turns out that in their community, within a 20-mile radius, 14 other children within a 2-year period had identified as being picked up, molested, and dropped off. And do you know who failed to investigate? The sheriff. So Patty Wetterling, her son would have never gotten kidnapped. Who knows what would have happened? And so she said, where's your anger? Because she doesn't want to live with anger and hatred. She wants to live in making people whole, making the world a better place. And she said, if I had any anger at all, and I don't, but I did, it would have been directed at the sheriff's department for dropping the ball and not investigating this. Patty Wetterling, even though a lot of people used her as the reason for the public registry and it just catapulted from there, she is an activist opposing the registry today. Many of you probably do not know the laws governing people on the registry, and I'm going to tell you, because it's so easy for our loved ones to get captured in this net. A lot of legislators do not know the laws governing this. And I would not stand before you if it was an efficient, effective public safety tool. But I'm telling you, it's zip zero, nada. And we should be taking those millions and billions of dollars that are capturing a million people nationally and repurposing it to primary prevention, treatment, and education. There is only one way to stop sexual assault victimization: before it happens. And so all this stuff after the fact is strictly punishment and carceral, instead of treating it like the public health crisis it is and mental health problems. Shame on us, we can do better. So for example, we take a consensual relationship, the guy's 19, the girl's under 16, 14, 15 years old, and the family blesses it. But then somebody gets angry. Maybe the father he discovers, they're drugging, whatever, decides to make an arrest because the father can do it on behalf of the underage person. The 19-year-old goes to prison 1 to 3 years. 1 to 3 years. Bad things happen in prison. The kid's never been in trouble a day in his life. No parking ticket, nothing. He comes out of prison, and he's on parole and/or probation for 10 years. He's got a 10-year suspended sentence and 10 years on the registry. Is that a bit much? Is it only me who say, what are we doing to our children? This past April, I was very fortunate to have 5 doctors come into, well, 3 or 4 doctors and a couple of clinicians, international and nationally renowned experts, 3 of which identified as sexual assault victims. 2 reported it to the police. They said as soon as they did, they were sorry they did. It was the legal system that victimized them, not anyone else. So these doctors came in and we did vicarious restorative justice. They identified as the victim, and people on the registry in Connecticut that are our members came in, and they had a session where the victim, quote unquote victim, because we want to say people first, people who identify as being sexually harmed, got together with people who may have perpetrated harm, because some of these men are innocent. And then what happens is they talk, and the common ground is found, the middle ground. This person, the victim, realizes these people are sorry. They're sorry they had anything to do with causing harm to another person. They're remorseful. This person, the victim, identifies that this person isn't a boogeyman or a monster. He's just a person like you and me. And so when we have successful vicarious restorative justice, the ideal situation is people get together and they hug. And that's called healing. Hurt people hurt people. Healed people heal people. I got into this as an advocate because my son is a justice-impacted person. I have been too close to all the broken systems, and I am deeply ashamed for what I have missed 28, 30 years earlier in my life. I used to be socially conscious. I became a very selfish woman at 28 to probably 50-something years old. And then I had a lot of trauma in my life. And I'm here to say I'm here for the long haul. And that I'm here to fight anything that I see that is wrong.